Hi, I'm Junie Hayashi, and I'm the Public Services Librarian here at Leeward.
Aloha, I'm Natalie Kahn, Instruction Librarian at Leeward Community College with Junie. And we're here with our dear colleague, our esteemed colleague, Ann Inoshita. We've been really fortunate to work closely with Ann for many years as she teaches in the Language Arts Division. And, you know, English teachers and librarians, they go together like pen and paper.
Well, today we're with Ann, and we're going to talk about her wonderful initiative, the Reading Room. And we're here on behalf of the Hawaii Libraries Association, and we'd just like to get an idea to see, I guess, all the workings of the Reading Room and basically how you got to do such a wonderful initiative like the Reading Room.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just got to say thank you for the Hawaii Library Association for your support. And basically, the Reading Room came about because we wanted some kind of platform to promote literacy. And the thing is, Hawaii has this great literary community, and we just wanted a global audience so that we wanted to increase awareness of our writers, of Hawaii literature, and yeah, and we're just grateful for this program.
And you're an amazing storyteller and writer in your own right. And that's another thing as librarians, we don't just collect stories, we love them, but we really, really work to share them. And it's so wonderful. Your program is sharing with the present generation, future generations, for folks both near and far. It's wonderful. And we're excited to focus on you today and learn a lot more about the Reading Room and your work.
Exactly. I mean, I've always been a fan, Anne, of you personally, but of your work. I'm just amazed at what you do, not just at Leeward, but your personal work as an author. And, you know, it amazes me your work with the Reading Room, but I always thought to myself, well, Anne's so fantastic. Why doesn't somebody interview her? And here we are.
Here we are.
Oh, thank you.
So let's learn more.
Thanks.
So basically, how did you just decide, like you were saying, that you wanted to promote literacy in the literary world more, and you came up with this idea? I mean, how did you come up with this great idea?
Well, originally what happened was we wanted to have a reading on the Leeward Community College campus, and so we had a guest author coming, and I talked to Les Matsuura, and we wanted to record a reading, and he had this great idea about having an archive of interviews. And then we basically planned a little bit more, and we wanted interviews on the writing process, but also having a way where authors could read their work. And so basically viewers could experience their work, but also know the background of how they got ideas, how they went through the writing process. And then the great part is we have Leanne Risley, who supported our efforts. And basically we have Camden Baruga, and we had Jordan Teruya, and at the video production team here of the Educational Media Center. So we're so grateful to have this program, and we interview around 5 authors a year, and we try to have a playwright, a novelist or short story author, and a poet. So just getting all the genres in there for anyone who's interested in reading and writing.
Wow, so it's very collaborative, it sounds like, with you at the helm. Can you tell us a little more about the process of actually producing an episode of The Reading Room?
Sure. First of all, Camden basically gets in touch with me, and we try to, because the thing is, the Reading Room, I mean, this is such a wonderful set, and the thing is, we have like about a week or so to film. So basically we have 1 author per day, and we usually have around 5 authors per season. And we usually film like sometime in the summer. So the first thing is I usually discuss with Camden, okay, so when are we gonna have this? And we usually try to find authors who match with our schedule and their schedules, and who can come down to the Reading Room, because we can do it remotely, but it's such a warm environment. It's so great to just come here to the Reading Room and kind of talk story about the process, And then so after that, we go through the questions. So basically, we have Les and Camden, and we discuss what questions we're going to ask. So it's, as you can tell, it's really collaborative, and I know that just to let you know, that wonderful beginning part, with that music and it kind of like it gets you into the mood of the reading room. That was created basically by Jordan Teruya. So he had that wonderful opening, So yeah, it's all just kind of getting it together, and I think the most challenging part might be to have the scheduling, because a lot of times,
You're doing it all kind of like the 5, it's all at one time. It's not like, okay, somebody comes 1 month, somebody comes another month. You're basically picking sort of a week that everybody will one day. So you get it done all in about a week, and then you're done for the year, and then you do it again the next year.
Yeah, because I know, like, with this set, a lot of times authors think this is a permanent set, because like you have this wonderful, fireplace and everything, and so it's just, I'm like, because the thing is, authors, they really want to come, they're interested in coming, and they're like, oh, I can't make it in the summer, how about like maybe, during winter break or anything, and I have to tell them like, oh, well, it kind of needs to be around that time, but we're hopeful because there's a lot of interest, so we're so grateful because authors, they share their work, and they've been really generous with us.
How do you go about picking, I mean, because there are so many great authors and playwrights and poets, and it seems like you always have wonderful people who you interview, and it's like, out of all the people, how do you pick? Or do you do it? Is it a group effort?
Well, I usually discuss this with Camden and Les, and because we want a good representation of basically authors in Hawaii, right? So we have Asian American authors, Native Hawaiian authors, Pacific Islanders, so, but I think what it is we're just looking for that authentic voice, and basically anyone who's willing to share the process, that's what we want, to share your voice and how you're going to creating your product, or your whether it's a screenplay or a play or a poem or short story, and just kind of like to help future writers.
So these storytellers obviously have a lot to share. Are they ever shy?
Yeah, I know, like, a lot of times, like, we put all of our guests in the reading room, we hold them in high esteem, right? They're like invited for a reason, and the thing is, but I know they're all nervous when they come, and and I'm nervous too, because they're like amazing literary figures, and I get the opportunity to interview them, so I'm nervous as well. But I think the great part about all of our authors is they really take this seriously. They really want to help and give advice to future writers, so anyone watching the show. And I really appreciate that, because they really care. And that's why, there's a little nervousness, but as they, we talk story and everything, they really are getting into that groove, and they start telling us, all of these great things that they do and how they do it.
Do any particular interviews stick out to you? Any moments in an interview?
Oh gosh, yeah, they're all great for different reasons. Like, everyone has a different voice, and they're all authentic voices, which is really important. So I know, like, from the beginning, we had Christy Passion, we had Lisa Lynn Kanai, we had Juliet Escono, and so grateful. And then we have, basically, we have Daryl Lum, right? Eric Chalk, Omar Piso. But we also have, like, Brandy Nalani McDougall, Victoria Nalani Nuvo, right? It's like, it's so big, it's like Chris McKinney, and I know, like, I'm it's just a long list, it's hard to, like, list everyone, but I think, like, they tend to talk about important things as they reflect on their writing journey, and it kind of helps me because it's kind of like therapy, because like they have the similar insecurities and, concerns that I guess all writers do, I know I was talking to Lois-Ann Yamanaka, and she was saying how, I would ask questions about, the writing process, and, we talked about that authenticity question, right? And I know, like, sometimes, basically being authentic and telling the truth in your writing, and that's important. But also she mentioned that, a lot of works are fiction, and just because, I guess, I know for me as a Japanese American author, sometimes people think that whatever you're writing is 100% true when you're writing, a fictional piece. So that perspective was good, and yeah, and again too, yeah, everyone's perspective is amazing. Yeah, it's hard to choose.
I really appreciate that. Lately, as librarians working with our colleagues who are working with students on developing their writing skills, and with artificial intelligence tools, chatbots, and so on, things are becoming a little bit generic and they're losing that authentic voice. I think students are maybe like relying on these tools and they're not understanding that their voice is really what's so special about writing.
Yeah, I agree. I think the reason why I think a lot of students use ChatGPT or a lot of AI programs is because they want to do everything correctly. They don't want to make a mistake. But the honest truth is, writing is messy, and you learn by making the mistakes, and then that's how you become the voice that you become. And a lot of times, like we look at these great works, right? They're published, this wonderful poem, right? For example, but it didn't get there just out of the ether, which a lot of people think, like, oh, I'm not that gifted in writing because it just doesn't come to me, right? But the truth is, it's all about dedication and work. For example, Chris McKinney was saying that, he has a routine, and then he, works like a certain time of the day and he keeps at it and he keeps on revising. And, greatness comes from the revision, so, and if, so I think in terms of the AI, I think a lot of originality comes from within. So just, trust yourself and trust that you'll make mistakes and that you'll make it better. Yeah.
It's like the reading room, right? We only see the outcome. It's so glossy and professional and it's wonderful, but I love that wisdom that it's like, there's stuff going on behind the scenes, whether you're writing or recording something like the reading room.
And what I appreciate when I have gone through and looked at the different episodes of the reading room is that it's like for students seeing real authors, I'm not versus fake ones, AI, but seeing the process and hearing their, like you said, authentic voice and saying why it doesn't just come naturally, they have to work at it, and sometimes you have to fail in order to succeed. And what I really appreciate is the fact that you put a CC license on these videos, because then, teachers, students, whomever, anyone in the community can access and watch these videos and learn from these videos.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that open educational resource, basically we want to share it, the works of Hawaiʻi authors, with the world, but also, have that protection where basically what you see is, although you can't, change it, it's viewable and, protected. And I really appreciate the open educational resource, team, at Leeward Community College, because you guys have a strong voice. You guys are doing so much in terms of having that available.
We're number one.
Yeah. So so grateful to have the support from, just Leeward in general. Yeah, Leeward Community College.
No, it does make a difference because you feel that, because as you had mentioned, Les wanted an archive. And an archive is wonderful if people can see it. Right? I mean, that's where they learn. And I can see this being such a wonderful tool, for teachers to show students, and they don't have to watch the whole thing, but there's some great parts that they could, use as clips and say, see, this is why you don't use AI when you're writing, your own work. You want your own voice to come out. And I think so often, like you said, people don't want to fail. So they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to use ChatGPT.
So this amazing resource that obviously librarians are big fans, what has the response been to this show?
It's been really positive, from authors, from educators alike. They'll use it in their classroom. They'll have it as example for not only creative writing classes but literary classes, and basically any environment where they want to learn. I know, like a great example is I was at Leeward one day and I was coming, to get vaccinated, really, and there was someone who was mentioned, oh, by the way, I really like the reading room. And then it's so, a person I don't even know. And I love the fact that it's on TV, and also on the internet, because I know with the television, you have an audience who may or may not, go to the internet, and, the vice versa, the same way with online viewers. But yeah, it's a case where I remember when I was younger, and I was working, and I really wanted to write, but at that time I was working and the schedule didn't allow it. And, so, for anyone who is too busy because they can't take a course, but they know they want to write, it's a good way to learn. Like, I remember I used to get all of these books on like writing and the creative process, the craft of writing. And, but this is a good way for anyone, even if you're not a student, just to kind of learn how to write. Yeah.
What other impact do you hope this series will have on writers or the broader community?
I think the great part with the internet is it's a global community. I know there's a lot of interest in Hawaii and Hawaii writers, and I think what tends to happen is you only see a certain type of writing, right, in the mainstream, right? And just because someone isn't aware of other authors or other regions, authors from that region, sometimes there's that mistaken thought that it doesn't exist, But globally, there's so much richness in literature, that I think we just want to increase awareness, and I'm so grateful, I know librarians increase awareness, like a lot of times you'll have visitors like, okay, I want to know about this topic, and, you basically help them find what they need. So, yeah, so I think one of the goals is just to have more outreach, yeah.
How far do you think your viewership spans? Do you know? Do you have people watching in Japan or the East Coast of the U.S.? Like,
well, I believe
Do
it's
we
all
know?
just. Well, honestly, I know that there's there's numbers. Like we know how many views we have. I probably need to ask Camden and about their outreach and how, if we know specifically where they're from. But yeah.
Well, I would think that you would get viewership from all over because you have such a diverse selection of authors, and it's all these different voices. It's not like you just have fiction. You don't have, just poetry or playwrights. You have all different genres, So, and these voices, I mean, basically kind of shed light on so many different parts of the literary field that it's really like taking a class, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned it. Also, how like we talk about how important it is to have your own authentic voice. And I know like Toni Morrison was saying, if you can't find a book or a story, basically maybe you're the one who should be writing, But I guess the great part is, like you said earlier, we have all of these different genres, of writers. But we also have, I think we encourage anyone who's listening that you should just try it. Just try to, write it for, and as an educator, I know sometimes our students tend to have like, try to find a voice and it's not theirs. Like, because they feel that, well, I don't want to use my voice, I want to, I know what's in the mainstream, and I know that's what people will read. So then they try to mold themselves to what they think might be popular, but then it's not as authentic, So I think there should be more credit given to who you are and kind of like, stand your ground and basically feel free to continue your story. Yeah.
Well, speaking of your story, how has your work with the reading room affected your own work? Because you're an accomplished writer yourself. And I remember the first time I read one of Ann's poems, and I went, because it was in Pidgin. And I was like, is this Ann Inoshita?
The English teacher, yeah.
The English teacher who speaks perfect English. And then I was reading, her work. And it's like you said, it's such an authentic voice that, I could feel it in your work. And I was just wondering how, when you're interviewing all these, like you said, wonderful authors, creators, how does, is that like more food for your own work, or, do you find it affecting you in a certain way? Are you looking at things differently?
Yeah, actually, that's such a good question. All of the interviews affect me because I think part of writing is kind of like for me as a writer, I think I have similar fears as other writers, like just because there's an award-winning author or there's a writer who's published so many novels, it's not a case where they all of a sudden feel confident and, oh yeah, next one, no problem, There's the same doubts, that they have. And like for me, just talking to each author kind of calms me down. Like for example, Wing Tech Lum was, when I talk about writer's block, he would be like real positive about it. And he'll say something like, well, if it doesn't come, it will, just kind of give it time, maybe like take a walk or, and it'll eventually come. In other words, Lisa Lynn Kanai doesn't believe in writer's block, right?
No.
Yeah.
Does it just come?
Yeah, I think all great ideas come at its time, and if it, in my opinion, if it takes a little longer, that's fine, but eventually it'll come. So all of this advice from different authors, it really helps me because, of course, like as a writer, like I'm scared, I'm like, oh my gosh, like what if I don't write the next book, or what if something happens and I just lose it and I can't do it, then then I find that that's kind of silly because people who write. So all of this great advice, it's so comforting, and I'm so grateful that because as writers we know each other, but to have this knowledge available to everyone, it's like you kind of have your own writers group.
Do you have any upcoming plans for the series?
Oh, okay. Well, we're communicating with authors, for the next season, which is good. That will be filming in the summer. And I think we're just trying to, the great part with talking to Camden and Jordan and Les and basically, having the whole team here is we keep on trying to have innovation, where we're trying to improve it, like add a little extra dimension to it, so it's not, we still have in essence helping, other writers, and encouraging literacy. But then the way we do it, there might be a little spin or, like I know one time we added an opening, that was introducing the author or, so there's different ways or angles to have freshness, so I just kind of go to them because they're the experts, right? And then they're such a great video media team, right? Video production unit that I totally trust them, and they know what they're doing and they're amazing. Yeah.
What I really appreciate is when the authors themselves read their works, and I think it's so helpful for people to hear not just the work itself, but to hear it in the author's own voice. I listen to a lot of audiobooks because I drive a lot. So I listen, right? Not, I used to before, way back in the day, I used to be that person with the book on the steering wheel going,
Oh no.
just like, okay. Usually in traffic, usually in traffic. But now I listen, so it's safe. But, to hear the author, right? Their own words. I mean, this is what they wrote. It's so personal. It gives you a sense of what you're supposed to be getting out of the work.
I totally agree. Like, for example, Elmer Bosco's piece, he's so amazing as when he reads his work, it comes alive. I just love it. It's just, and the thing is, you're right. You could read it, in book form, and but to hear the actual voice of the author and the delivery of the author, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine how scary it must be for an author, because have you ever sent off like an email and then you reread it and go, oh, I sounded so firm, or I did, you didn't sound the way you intended to when you hear it from someone else's sort of perspective, someone else's voice. So yeah, that is great to hear it from the authors
really is,
themselves.
because you hear it the way it's supposed to sound. And they're putting their own, I guess, personality in there. It's like you said with emails. When you send out an email, it can be so cold, or it could be like overly
Too friendly. That's probably what I'm guilty
too
of.
friendly. But when it comes from the author themselves, I'm sure. Was that one of the things that you wanted, like to have them read?
Yeah, it's to increase like awareness of their own works as well. So I know there might be people in the audience, and that's why they're tuning in, because they want to collect a knowledge of new voices, or even like established writers here that others might not be familiar with. It's so good to like not only hear their advice but also hear them read their work, so have kind of like a taste of what they've done. And even if you're familiar with it, it's just good to hear it again, especially if that's your favorite author. It's like, oh yeah, just like read that poem or read that story again. I love it, And I think that's just, it adds more flavor, to the program. And I just really appreciate the advice and also the example that's given.
Yeah, and this like teasers for their own work. It's like, did you like that? Okay, you can go to your library and borrow the book, or go and buy it. But we're librarians. We're all about the free.
Absolutely.
And I love the fact that you're right. It allows them to just look at all of their works, right, in the library, and so grateful for because I know bookstores are there and they're wonderful and everything, but it's just so good to have a collection, especially if someone might not have the the money to, but they want to read everything. It's just such a great service. Thanks.
Of course. So the reading room, it's well received, and it's so diverse, and it represents so many voices. How do you see it like evolving or changing as you continue on with your series?
Well, I guess I know we have that global audience, which we appreciate. So I know like maybe expanding our archive, like I know we have like I said earlier, like we have the videos out there, we also have it on television, and I guess just promoting it, like for example, I know we have like Instagram and Facebook, and but also with the librarians, of like having other venues, like to kind of share this with, so like for example, I know teachers, they'll like ask you like, oh, I want to have more like Hawaii-based literature, here, and so, but I want to have an assignment, but what can I do, and so, having them look at the videos and, basically having them have assignments based on the videos would be great as well. Yeah, so I think just having more exposure is great. Yeah.
Definitely. I think there are a lot of ways that librarians would love to work with faculty and showcase this wonderful series. Do you have other ideas for maybe public librarians, school librarians, or academic librarians like us for how we can incorporate the reading room?
Oh yeah, well, I know libraries in general, they can have like book clubs, and they have authors, they can show the videos in regards to a certain topic, I know basically from like K to 12 librarians, they can actually work with educators, to have assignments, where like say after they watch the reading room, they could actually have that as like a quote, that they can use for their research assignment, or basically, like celebrate, because I know there's Poetry Month and, there's all of these different, different months.
I can see that specifically for public libraries, because they're always having different events, right? They're always having different events, like you said, Poetry Month, or it could be, a specific genre or even a specific author, right? I mean, because maybe you want like murder mysteries or something, or
Oh yeah, there's a lot of
there's a lot of different things. I'm kind of going blank right now.
Well, and again, Junie joked earlier about how much we love free. It's our favorite, and so it's so terrific that you're making this accessible and usable, because it's like, we don't have to go and beg for funding. We can, take this, and what's more valuable than a local voice that's representative of our students and our community. So it's really and speaking of fabulous local voices, are you going to be featured on the reading room as an author instead of the interviewer?
Oh, thanks for your support. I mean, I really appreciate it. I would love to be a part of the reading room, as a guest. I know, for me, the focus has been, okay, let's schedule these authors, but I would love to be a part of the reading room. And in fact, this whole production, I'm so proud of the whole team. I think there's also an added value if we could have a show where we show how the reading room is created, by the video production unit. Yeah, that would be great.
I'm sure people think, oh, wow. Every time I see one of the episodes, I go, Ann makes it so effortless. It's just, she just sits there and she talks story with the author, and then it's done.
It's a team effort, and it's because of everyone involved, and I think a lot of times, we just kind of wonder how it's made, and it's just, I just want to bring all of them here, to the table, and we can tape them as well. Yeah, thank you.
Will it be more nerve-wracking to be the interviewer or the interviewee in the reading room for you?
Let's see. Well, as you know, this is my first time on the other end, so I appreciate your questions, right? But yeah, it's a different experience, right? I don't know, all this time as host, I love, talking to them and everything.
And you're asking questions about them and their work. And now maybe we can turn it around a little bit and say, so Ann, what new work are you looking at?
Oh, well, I guess to answer the question, I'm working on another collection of pigeon poems, and basically, it's just so I'm always working on new collections, so it's just a case of just finding the right time, and just kind of being satisfied with the collection itself, before just kind of venturing out and say, okay, this is the next book, yeah.
Would this be with Bamboo Ridge, or?
Oh, well, right now I'm still in the process of, compiling it. So yeah, I haven't really examined the publishing aspects yet. But yeah, it's an ongoing process, right? Because, when you come up with a collection, you think it's done, but then later on there's a new idea that comes up, so it's not done. So I know, and I need to kind of make sure that I don't edit myself too much, where it's or it'll never get done, right? So, yeah.
Well, you're going to keep on, I can see you being sort of like a perfectionist and saying, well, I want to keep on making it better. And I have this responsibility to make it better and better and better. And then, like you said, when do you stop?
That's a good question. And it's like, yeah, there has to be an end game, you know. And again, too, like what I noticed too with other writers as well is when they finish the book, they're still like editing it in their head, you know, like the poem or starts like, oh man, if I could have like twisted or changed this or, you know, so yeah, it's always ongoing. Like just because something's published doesn't mean that it's done in the writer's mind. So yeah, so it's good to hear that because when I was young, I thought, oh, it's published, it's done, you know, it's like, you know, but I guess it's not, you know, so I guess what's going in my mind is similar to what other writers feel like, I guess, you know, but eventually you have to kind of stop yourself. And I know basically Brandy Nalani McDougall was saying that works have a life of their own. So after it's published, you know, basically you have readers and they have their own experiences and it kind of takes on its own. So it's basically kind of letting it go. You know, that's so all of this great advice from all of these authors really helped me process because it's again it's hard, you know, like life is hard, right? Writing
you
is
have
hard.
so many different things in your life. I mean, you teach and you're doing this and you're also doing your own work and you're writing. And so it's like this juggling, right?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I know Victoria Newbold was saying, I know especially as women, you know, we have families, we're caregivers, you know, there's no like great time to, oh, I'm gonna just sit down and write. You know, it's always like kind of like stolen moments and then you write. And of course, you know, like I know like a lot of people think that there's this, oh, if I have this wonderful place and this wonderful time, I can just write. But a lot of times it is stolen moments and you write because you're a writer and that's what you do. So you just have little times in the morning and all of these different elements of craft, everyone has their own style. So just because like I know Chris McKinney, you know, does a certain time of day, others, you know, don't. So whatever works for you, yeah.
It's amazing that creative people can actually, you have to contain multitudes, right? You can be as the most creative, imaginative writer, storyteller, but it will never see the light of day if you can't make a schedule for yourself and get things published and do all that. So it is so extra impressive that you're able to be a creator, but also wrangle it in a way that, you know, you put on a series like this, you work with librarians like us. You do it all, Anne. It's very impressive.
It's like we always say, Nat and I, because, you know, we can have the best databases, the best online resources, but if nobody looks at them,
What's the point?
what's the point?
Absolutely. And so the reading room, it airs on UHTV, right? And so I think part of it being public access, publicly broadcast, that's on purpose, right? That's by design.
Oh yeah, because we know we have an audience where they prefer watching TV, right? And then they, you know, a certain set time and a certain set channel, which is great, you know.
How did you guys come up with that platform? How did that come to be? I mean, I don't think, you know, like, so Nat and I have our own show and we're saying, hey, let's get on UHTV.
Oh gosh, you know, Camden was telling me about it. It's like, oh, you know, let's, you know, put it on UHTV. I'm like, oh, that would be a great idea. You know, I was like so excited about it. And so, yeah, you know, honestly, the video production unit and Leeward Community College, I'm just amazed at what they can do. And, you know, seriously, if it wasn't for them and Leeward Community College, we wouldn't have a show, you know. So, you know, it's just a great experts in the field and with the connections and all of that. And so I'm just I'm just so happy that we can continue doing this, you know.
So how does it work? Sorry, I don't understand how UHTV works.
Well, I
Is it like I just turn on the channel and then?
so there's different programming based on different basically professions, right? There might be about like computer science, right? Learning more about, you know, certain aspects of the computer. There might be about culinary, right? Arts. And so there's all of these vast like educational programs and we're so grateful, you know, and one of them is the reading room, you know, so yeah.
So is it any particular time or it's just kind of streaming at a different times?
Well, I know that there's usually a set schedule that comes up, and then they'll kind of let us know, and it's on their website as well. For example, spring, might be different from fall, but they usually have like a lineup, and then like the reading will be on a certain set days and times, and yeah, people will know like just by going on that website, oh, okay, that's where I'm going to tune in. So yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah,
I mean, so you're not, it's like it's being broadcasted out. It's not just waiting for somebody to click and say, I'm going to watch YouTube now and I'm going to watch.
That's how I watch it.
Yeah, that's how I watch it.
Yeah, so true. And we have like viewers who kind of know what days and times, and then they'll tune in, right? And then some who might be just watching the UHTV, and they're like, oh, what's this program? And then they can, and hopefully they'll go on the internet and then kind of do a search, right, for the Reading Room, Leeward Community College, and then they'll find like a whole library of videos, and then they'll be able to, kind of like check in on each author that's of interest,
So that's so wonderful, because it's not just looking at your YouTube views, because you've got this whole audience. So I mean, the outreach that the Reading Room has is a lot bigger.
That's a good point. I haven't gotten the figures of like what the ratings are, on the specific channel, right? But yeah, that's a good point. So it'll be interesting to find out the impact, of it. Yeah.
And it would be wonderful to, you were mentioning that like teachers, I mean, not just instructors in maybe the UH system, but I mean, K-12 can use this. And it would be wonderful to know, what kind of impact it has been, on those different schools, those different students.
That's so important, and I'm so glad you mentioned it, because I know for me, I wrote my first poems when I was in elementary school, and it's usually because it's assigned, like write a poem, in class.
And did you publish that one?
Well, not that one, but but it just sparked an interest, at a young age. So I think what's happening is, if teachers, use the Reading Room and, for their classrooms, at least students can kind of find an example of, different voices that they might not be familiar with, and just kind of hopefully, because sometimes, and this is just my opinion, I think if a student or someone isn't really interested in reading, I'm thinking it's just a case where they didn't select the right reading material, where if they have something that they connected with, then they would just love reading and they'll continue reading. And so I think it's the sparking that passion. Yeah,
I started my library career in a school library. And so I worked in 3 different elementary school libraries. And this is already the age of where, kids would prefer to be on a tablet or doing whatever. But this is a misconception. Students come into the library, it's still hallowed ground for them. They're still so excited about stories and books and finding just the perfect thing. And so I totally agree with you. It's like the younger you can get them in and just keep that love of reading alive. And we try not to, totally stamp it out of them in college and university. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of reading.
I'm so glad you mentioned it, because like, who doesn't like a story?
Oh,
right?
Seriously. What we say every time like we do different tours in the library is like, we point to all the different genres that we have. And we basically tell students, we really don't care what you read. We just want you to read, I mean, seriously, that's why we have like graphic novels, we have self-help books. I mean, it's just like
bestsellers,
all different types.
Yeah.
And I was thinking as we were talking, how wonderful it would be if there was a way that we could do a more focused outreach to schools, to schools, probably high schools, to see, to help them use the videos for projects, for, I mean, obviously it would be primarily language arts, English, right, writing, but to be able to use the videos to help the teachers, one, build a love of reading for the students, but also to give them a little confidence. I think that as you're growing, your confidence in your own writing is not very high. I know mine wasn't when I was in high school, and it's like you had to have a writing assignment, and it's like, no, I don't want to write. Everything I write sounds stupid.
No.
But, to be able to have something, a more focused program, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but in my head, I can see what a wonderful resource this would be. And I feel that you can work with the schools.
Kind of creates a bridge. It's a
Yeah.
great tool for creating a bridge. And again, it's, amplifying voices that students will relate to and understand. Because sometimes I think that's the biggest leap you make between school and college or university is just that mystery. That kind of academia can be very intimidating. And if you hear these very established writers, talking about writer's block, talking about their own voices, I think that could be really empowering for students to make that big transition from school to higher education.
Yeah, I'm so glad that it's a lot of great ideas, and I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because I think a lot of the self-doubt occurs where, because I know when we are young, we just experiment, we write poems, we do everything, and then we're there with no fear, right? It's like, oh, look at what I wrote, and everything's fine and joyous, and at some age or some level, we start stopping to, we stop writing and reading because we think that whatever we write isn't good enough. Or whatever, it's like trying to go for perfection, and it's like, oh, well, I'm not a good writer. And it's like, oh, there's nothing really what I want to read, But yeah, it's just reaching out at the early levels, but even continuing that outreach, like throughout your K through 12. It's great because we want to keep that motivation and that spark. So by the time they reach college, they still have that fire,
Well, I like what Nat was saying about a bridge, because we talk so much about how we feel it's so hard when the high school comes, and I'm not talking about the early college kids. They're totally different. But when just first-time college goers from high school come, and I feel like sometimes there's so much of a disconnect, right, from what they're expecting their college experience to be, and to have something, like you said, some kind of bridge that they can see, this is what, I can expect, or, and it to be a positive.
Yeah.
Not a scary thing. This is positive, and to hear real people talking about real lives in their authentic voice.
Yeah, I love that, because I agree. A lot of times there's that discovery period. It's like, I don't know what college is, but I know and this is just me, probably every movie I see about college, you see the all-nighters. You see people struggling, but they do it, they just keep on going because they know that they can, eventually learn. So yeah, wonderful.
So as we continue to foster these aspiring writers, if they want to get onto the reading room, how do they do it? What are the steps?
What I would recommend is, work on your craft of writing, right? Because as a writer, we're always trying to get better, Also, go for publication, right? And also try to be a part of the writing community, because I think a lot of times we, writers support writers, so it's always a good idea to get out there and, just kind of, get the benefits of that by kind of supporting each other. Yeah.
Are there particular writing groups or, that you would recommend? I mean, when you were starting out, where did you go? What did, if you didn't know another writer, how do you, I guess, build your own community?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and usually that's how it starts, right? You kind of like, have friends or you know of someone who writes as well and you make a connection and then you kind of, and you trust that person where it's like, oh, I know you kind of like writing and I like writing and like, would you like, do you mind if I share my work or, would you like to see or like, who could I view what you're looking at? And then you have your own writers group, with your peers, like for example, I know Leeward Community College, they have a writers group, and a lot of times it's with students, but it's whoever's interested really. And so I just love that where a lot of times our own community has like a writers group or you'll find out, and even if you don't have a writers group, just create one, right? And I think that's a great opportunity for libraries, right? Where you could have, writers clubs. I know there's book clubs, but there's writers clubs too, where you could share your work and maybe, because I know like once you find other writers, then you have that synergy and the excitement that another writer will also feel, so.
Well, and I think for students, there's always like the school newspaper, or we have the Kamanao, or, different kinds of, I guess, more, focus groups, right, that they could write for. But I think, that's the thing that all wannabe, right, wannabe authors say, well, where do I get started? What do I do? And then they see, someone like you who's written so much and who's very accomplished, and you're interviewing all of these very accomplished writers. It's like, how do I get there?
Yeah. Well, I know there's a lot of like, for example, Bamboo Ridge works with Kumakuhua Theater, and there's these contests, that you could write like a play, with a certain number of words, And I know Kumakuhua Theater, if you're interested in playwriting, they usually have, something that you could sign up for, regarding those classes, and I know like Bamboo Ridge, at times they'll offer, kind of an institute, so there's all these different avenues, for learning. I know creative writing classes are good, like I know when I talked about it earlier, I know when I was working full time, I wasn't able to, attend, but luckily I had an employer who they said that, well, if you attend this Tuesday, Thursday, or this certain class, at UH Manoa, then you could make up the time by working a Saturday, or so I'll kind of like juggle my schedule. But there's usually a way, like if the desire is there, there's going to be a way for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have advice for writers that are coming onto the reading room to prepare for the interview?
Oh yeah. Usually, like we have writers who, when we ask, and luckily they say yes, it's because they really want to help others, right? So my advice to anyone who's interested, or actually anyone who's going to be on the reading room, it's be comfortable, right? Also be yourself, right? We asked you to come for a reason, yeah? But also be generous. And a lot of times, all of our authors here, they've been so generous with their knowledge and their time, and we've been really so grateful. It's been such a positive experience, and you could tell just by looking at the videos, anyone who watches our authors share, they really share from the heart, and they're trying to give their best advice, so really grateful for all of them.
Has any author ever said no? I can't imagine. Or maybe cannot.
Well, usually it's a time thing,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh, well, maybe not this time. If possible, maybe my schedule might open up later on, So, yeah, so it's usually the time crunch. Yeah, yeah.
And I keep on hearing you say how grateful you are to all of these people who are so generous with their time, people who have done so much. And I really feel that you need to also thank yourself. We thank you. Because obviously all the time and effort that you've put into the reading room and you've put into, putting this all together, even being so generous and saying, okay, if you want to interview me for
Hawaii
the
Library Association.
Sure. You didn't even do that. You said, sure, I'll do that. You know, and I really want to highlight how grateful we are for you and all that you do and what you're doing for not just, you know, the authors, the wannabe authors, the students, but the community as a whole, because this is such a great resource. You know, all of those videos and all that work, you just have to pat yourself on the back because you've done so much, and we are so grateful.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. I really, because, and I just gotta say, you know, having this program is such a joy, right? Because as you know, like life, you have ups and downs, and it's just such a satisfying experience to be part of this team that it's like whatever your day is, or, you know, however, you know, whatever challenges come, you know, it's just reassuring to have this place, this space where you can just kind of share your knowledge and, you know, accept the knowledge of others, and just have this time to support each other. You know, I know it's a harsh world, and it's just such a positive vibe, you know. So I'm just happy that this show exists, and hopefully, you know, we'll be able to continue with a lot more to expand the archive. So yeah, thanks.
We look forward to watching and working together to elevate these voices, to not only collect the stories, but share them widely for, like I said, future generations near and far. Mahalo, Ann, for joining us today and sharing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.